in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
I would love to see Lefty get a good a coaching opportunity.
Byron, yep.
If they want to go defense again, I would love to see Coach Bowles. With the history of Minnesota, they always tend to, pick defensive-minded coaches. And if they want to go that route, I think Bowles would be a great pick. Just not only what he was able to do over the last, 2 seasons, but his resume as far as his defense in general.
How about Patrick Peterson getting in on the
reckless speculation,
the lifestyle?
That's a fun show. I like that show.
Mm-hmm. All things covered.
Yeah, he speculates pretty well for a guy who's active, so I appreciate that.
He does, yeah, and he's not under contract with the Vikings, so it remains to be seen. I'd take him back. I don't want him making a huge chunk of money while the Vikings try to fix a million other things, but they're going to need cornerbacks next year, regardless of what this thing looks like. This is Mackie and Judd Feedback Friday, where we take all of your comments, questions, concerns, really anything that you want to throw at us via the SKOR North app. You can also hit us up on Twitter, the YouTube comment sections, and ordinarily we do like 20, 30 minutes feedback. We have so much feedback this week because the Vikings fired everybody. There's a couple wild ones in here too. That we're just going to devote the entire Friday show today to your feedback and your questions. And let's start with this one. This is from DJ on Twitter. And he brings, I think, a concern that a lot of fans have had this week. He says, I tune into you guys daily for Vikings news. I have for years. Love the show. Love you guys. Thank you. I have a question regarding the 8 Vikings GM candidates. Maybe you can help me. Like you've stated, these aren't household names, but after you guys introduce them to us with your shows, honestly, I'm not getting a warm and fuzzy feeling. They just don't seem like the cream of the crop. Where's Ed Dodds, for instance? Is it down to just these 8 candidates? Will there be more after the Vikings interview these 8? Maybe this job isn't as coveted as we think. I don't know. I'm a little bummed. I guess I will trust our organization to make the correct decision. But as of right now, I'm not too excited. Anyways, thanks for hearing me complain. Keep trying to bring Super Bowls to Minnesota. Skol.
So Ed Dodds I'm curious on that one myself because we very much thought that he was going to be in the mix, and I'm almost positive he was on that list. So I don't know if he told them no thanks. I don't know. Something happened there that I don't know. Will McClay, who I think is definitely a hot name, said, no thanks. I'm getting another big raise from my pal Jerry Jones and staying in Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rest of those names, though, like if you're supposed to get a warm – the warm, fuzzy feeling, I think, more so to the point, to the questions point off the top was, it's like a coaching list. It's like, oh, yeah, that guy, and I know that guy, and that's a hot name. I don't think GMs fall in that same realm. And keep in mind, GM searches are rare, like especially in this town for this team. The Vikings, Spielman had been here for 16 years, but he had only been officially GM since 2012. And prior to that, they didn't have a GM. So I don't think you're supposed to get the comfortable, I really like this list feeling in this case. I don't think it's the fault of the Vikings. I don't think it's the fault of the candidates. I just think, again, we're going behind a curtain that we don't often go behind. And that makes it much tougher to embrace. The guy from the Titans.
Yeah.
You don't know him.
Yeah, well, and it's not like there's a bunch of materials out there, when it comes to be draft time in April and the 2 weeks leading up. The amount of information you can gather about players that your team might draft is endless, right? You can read scouting reports, you can watch full games. There's all 22 film. You can watch YouTube highlight clips, whatever you want. Like I've been watching a lot of Carson Strong videos this last week because I think he's one of the best quarterbacks. He's fun to watch.
Broaden your world out, Phil. You got to broaden your YouTube world out a little bit in a good way.
I'll get there. I'll watch some left guard YouTube film at some point. But like there is no tape for like Catherine Raish, right? And the job that she's doing in front offices. Ryan Poles doesn't have like endless amounts of scouting reports about him as a GM candidate. So
right.
It's I think in terms of like, is this an underwhelming list? I don't know what you would compare it to. Like these are like 3 of the people on this list were finalists for GM jobs last year. So you're kind of flying blind. The Wilfs are even kind of flying blind a little bit. Like they're gathering intel on the 3rd ranking executive in a different organization, right?
Yes.
And they don't have a history of hiring a lot of front office executives.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess that maybe this isn't the answer that Vikings fans want, but there is a pretty sizable risk that they could whiff on the GM hire.
Well, and like I would challenge people right now and us too. So I'm including us. Start rattling off names of current GMs.
Right.
Like, hey, let's name all the
Yeah.
coaches. Okay.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks for sure. Okay, now start naming all the GMs. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people can name some, but my point being is, even when they get the job, they're not exactly national household names.
Yes, that's correct. So I don't know if DJ. I don't know if we did anything to make you feel better there, but
Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad about it. Like, don't be too concerned because you just don't like get a good feeling from the list. I don't think this list in particular is meant to be like, oh yeah, that's the home run hire.
And I will say there are some consensus smart people on this list, and again, people that have been validated by becoming finalists for other jobs, people that are being validated by 3 other organizations looking to interview them. I mean, Ryan Poles interviewed yesterday with the Giants, right? So it's not like it's not just a random list of 8 here.
Right, correct. And if Rick Spielman had gotten the GM job back in 2006 when he was originally hired by the Vikings, or we had been more in the era that we are now, the pushback against Rick would have been huge. Because it basically would have been like, hold on, this guy was a scout, had basically a cup of coffee as the GM with the Dolphins. The Dolphins didn't do great back then. So my point being is it's not like Rick was like this household name himself. It's just it's a tougher search to conduct.
Yeah.
And it's probably a tougher search to sell because it's hard to quantify. Oh yeah, that person, guy or gal, is good for sure.
Yep. All right, Sheldon here, Feedback Friday via Twitter. He says, I was listening to your show and I heard you guys bring up Ryan Poles, the Chiefs front office executive I just mentioned. I think it should be mentioned that he was more than likely a big part of the decision-making that led to the Chiefs basically scrapping their offensive line and spending big in free agency to remake it, and then drafting arguably the best rookie offensive lineman in Creed Humphrey to protect their most important player, Pat Mahomes. I want someone who understands the importance of having an offensive line and how to build one successfully. Your thoughts? I will say, and I did a short video on my Instagram account yesterday too, just saying like, hey, this is all kind of a crapshoot if you're not involved in the behind-the-scenes conversations, which obviously we aren't. But Ryan Poles is really fascinating to me because some of this is, what culture are you a part of? Of course, are you helping to drive that culture or are you just a passenger? And that's what you have to figure out here. But the Chiefs' secret sauce, people are going to say, well, it's Pat Mahomes. Well, but let's go back. The Chiefs' secret sauce includes being a playoff team for, I think, multiple years and having a really good quarterback, not great, but a really good, solid, safe quarterback in Alex Smith, which is kind of where the Vikings are at, maybe a step further back because the Vikings aren't a playoff team. And they said it's not good enough, just like the Wilf said. And that front office said, we're going to trade up 17 spots in the first round of the draft for a guy that we think could have huge upside, but also like we got to mold him. What all went into that process? What made them decide that, yep, we've hit a glass ceiling and these are the aggressive moves that we need to make to go forward? And then how did they build the offensive line? How did they maximize Patrick Mahomes and get him to play at his 95th percentile, all those things? Was Ryan Poles the reason for all of this? No, there's a lot of smart people in that organization. He wasn't the general manager. But if he was a driving force for some of these things, that's a really interesting potential hire for me.
The thing too that I think the process that these people are going to go through when they sit down with the Wilfs and this committee of people that the Vikings have put together to vet the candidates, and this is what I'm curious about too. A person like Poles, how much did he and how smart is he? Did he learn too? Because clearly there's a case to be made that, particularly in with the Chiefs, Andy Reid, who, by the way, had a ton of success in a very long head coaching stint in Philadelphia, but he didn't get over the top, and he clearly learned. Like the whole transitioning from Smith to Mahomes is something that he didn't do with the Eagles, where he had McNabb for a long time. And so what I would love to know too, and I don't know how much you can actually quantify this, but it would be interesting, is how much did these people learn during their time working for smart football people? And because like if you learned, that's great. And again, that's why I keep going back to, I think you need to get candidates who are confident, but what they can't be is arrogant.
Yes.
So like you're confident, you learn, but you're not like, well, this is how I did it. Like don't like, and give credit out too, right? Like if you learn from certain people, credit them. Don't like claim, oh yeah, I saw this and thought that this is what we should do.
Yeah, I would add too that obviously everyone has an ego to some extent, but you're gonna whiff. You're gonna whiff on draft picks. You're gonna whiff on free agents. You're not gonna bat 1,000. Even the Ozzie Newsomes, the great GMs in NFL history, are gonna make mistakes. You can't cling to, well, no, like this was my guy, this was my evaluation. Like Garrett Bradbury is a great example. Did they really need to run him out there for a third season? Like what were they? He was billed as one of those draft ready starting week 1 ready offensive linemen when he was drafted, and after 2 years, it's like he's a backup. So be comfortable with being wrong sometimes.
Sure.
Don't cling to wrong personnel moves a year or 2 years beyond what you should.
Sure.
And I don't know, be willing to admit that you maybe don't know everything too, and seek people that might be smarter than you in certain areas. Dex, did you have a thought there?
Well, I think the Ryan Poles thing is interesting just because, yeah, he did play a big part in that offensive line rebuild. I mean, you have to also remember that Mahomes lowered his cap hit too and spread it out so they could build up that offensive line and go get Joe Thuney and others. And Poles is a former offensive lineman. The dude was a lineman at BC, and I do think he probably is, if we can recklessly speculate, probably is on that short list of these 8 candidates that probably, if you want to put the odds on who gets the job the most, he might be one of the most sought after guys in the NFL right now.
Yeah. And he just interviewed with the Giants, and the Giants are interviewing a few more today. So the Giants are like probably 5 days ahead of the Vikings schedule. And that's what you have to wonder, whether it's Poles or somebody else. Let's say the Giants come back on Saturday and they're like, all right, we've interviewed 6 candidates. This is our guy. We're going to make an offer. Okay, then can he drag his feet and hey, I got an interview with the Vikings on Tuesday, and this is where I wonder about the timing of all this. I'm fine with them not rushing this, but some of these candidates that the Vikings have on their list are interviewing with other teams right now, and they might get offers, and then it gets interesting. Chancey in Fargo, our good friend from Ventline,
all right,
he chimes in via the SKOR North app. Heard you guys talking about the Vikings aiming for 2023 to compete. With that in mind, why not just let Cousins play out his $45 million cap hit next year? The salary cap will hurt the Vikings' ability to upgrade the roster, but that in turn will hurt their record, which leads to a higher draft pick. So then you have a clean break from his salary entering the 2023 offseason, a higher draft pick, and because you'll have to play young players on the cheap to fill holes, that'll help you identify some future guys with upside. Thoughts?
I could see this. I could. I think that there needs to be, and I'll go back to saying this, a remaking of the locker room itself and a change in culture and philosophies. But you know what? I could see this happening. Because if you say, well, we could make a run best case at the 7th seed, but we're not a championship team. And we can't really trade Kirk. And I think the one thing I could say with personally complete confidence, there are those who will disagree completely with this statement, is I don't think a new administration is going to extend Kirk. So like, I don't think, and there are people out there that think, oh yeah, no, Judd, Phil, and Declan, you guys are wrong. They're going to extend him. I don't think so personally.
I agree.
But what Chancey just said, and we have not discussed this a ton, it's a possibility because the cap's going up. It would hurt you cap wise, but if you don't consider yourself a championship team, and then starting in 23, when more than Kirk, as far as high contract guys potentially are going to be gone, you've got a ton of room to go into March of 23 to spend and really remake your roster. I don't think Chancey's wrong. I don't think it's ideal, but I also don't think it's necessarily wrong.
I have heard buzz.
Reckless speculation.
Hold on. Let me. Oh, yeah. Oh, I hear some buzz. Jack, you hear it? Jack, you hear the buzz?
Right.
Yeah, that's not feedback.
Yes. It's buzz. I have heard buzz that the discussions surrounding the new hires and the direction of the organization, that trading Kirk Cousins is very much top of mind, that they're going to explore it. And that would be the argument against this. If you decide we're not going to extend him, the new GM and the new coach are going to come in and say, I mean, he's fine, but like, even if he gives us kind of a hometown discount here, it's going to be $30+ million. It's still going to be 15+% of your salary cap. He's 34. Like, this might be your only shot as a GM coach. You're going to want to draft someone. That's almost always how this works, unless you inherit Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson or somebody. So if you've decided extensions off the table, they're going to try and trade him, because if they think they can get a second round pick or something, some sort of an asset, then you would absolutely take that. But if it became a situation where the quarterback needy teams were filling their spots with Aaron Rodgers, and then, Russell Wilson gets traded or something, and you're just sort of screwed in the game of quarterback musical chairs, then do you have to attach a draft pick to a team? I don't think so. I think a team would still give a draft pick for Kirk, but we probably won't know until the buzz really hits in February.
Yep. And this is partially going to depend too on what the new GM and coach, if they're like, well, 2022 almost should be a lost cause. Like, we just not going to do much, and we don't care if we contend for that final playoff spot or two in the conference. I'm just saying I could see this. I think the thing that they're going to explore is a trade. And I disagree with those who think you'll get nothing for Kirk. I think you'll get something, and I think it's going to surprise us. But all of that being said, I think there's a better chance that they hold on to him and play him next year on that ridiculous cap hit than they extend him.
Yeah. Yeah, and so let's say that happens, and you sit on that $45 million cap hit. Right now, you're $11 million over the salary cap. You have to clear room. You're going to have to clear at least like $17 or $18 million just to account for your draft picks, let alone free agents that you might sign that might cost $5, $10, $15 million.
Yeah.
So playing Kirk on that cap hit is really waving the white flag next year, unless you feel like, and some people might, and there is a case to be made here. If you feel like a new offensive-minded coach and a new coordinator is going to lift you a couple extra wins or something, they're not. If Kirk is your quarterback and you run this thing mostly back with similar personnel, you're not going to be a total dumpster fire. Like, you're going to be competitive. Right. You're going to be 6, 7, 8 wins, I think, at worst, if everyone stays fairly healthy. So,
do you know what I would like to see? Almost in a vindictive way, though. Do you know what could be great fun? What could be great fun is if they come in, the new people sit down with Kirk, and they're like, okay, what can we do, Kirk? And he's like, nothing. I love my contract. Okay. And they don't trade him. That would give you license to start jettisoning veteran guys who are still okay, but they're not like key to 2023. And then just blame Kirk. Oh, you liked Harrison Smith, Vikings fans? Oh, I'm sorry. We had to keep Kirk. Didn't you want to keep Kirk? I thought you loved Kirk. Oh, Adam Thielen was one of your Oh, no, we couldn't do him and Kirk. Now he's gone. You know whose fault it is? Kirk's.
That's how you would roll. You would come in here
and fans would
then get
like,
fired
you can't
after
do that.
one
Be like,
year.
It's all. You know what? Don't talk to me. Talk to 8.
Talk to 8. Yeah.
Talk to 8.
Talk to mystery meat guy. Jerry Beach via the SKOR North app, excuse me, says, how would you people feel if we went with a guy like Matt Birk to run the front office? Matt is part of the Matt is part of the leadership within the Players Union currently as the NFL Director of Football Development. Matt is also a Harvard grad, was a Hall of Fame player at an important position in the NFL, played for the Vikings, won a Super Bowl, the Ravens, etc. He should know a thing or two about quarterback play, which is important in today's game. The list goes on and on. This would be the kind of hire that would bring a fresh perspective and should be able to construct a coaching staff and a roster that would compete at a high level. Would you consider Matt Birk to run things?
The future governor of this fine state has no time to be GM of the Vikings.
That's even scarier than him being the GM, Judd. I just want to point that out.
If he ran for governor, we already voted Jesse Ventura.
We voted a wrestler in
20 plus years ago. I don't think we could resist voting a Vikings
I'm just saying he
player.
doesn't have time. So speaking for Berkey, no.
Yeah, I'm good on Birk as the GM of this football team. Nate B via the SKOR North app. Just curious, why are you guys afraid to curse on your show since you're not on the radio anymore? It's fun to hear every once in a while when you guys are getting really into a debate or topic. I think Boone's the only one that does that. Even though we've told him not to. Not that you need to swear every other word. Totally get it if it's for ads or how you market your brand. Anyways, keep up the great work and cheers to a new chapter in Vikings effing football. Well, I think, so we work for the company that writes our checks every couple weeks is Hubbard Broadcasting, and it's more like the FCC sort of code for what you can and can't say on the radio. They'd like us to uphold that on podcast and YouTube. And a lot of the stuff that we do on podcast and YouTube also still runs on the radio from 5 to 6 p.m. But maybe we should just start like one episode a week where every sentence, it's like the Dan Band. Like we just sneak in random F-bombs and stuff. Well,
I think it was AMC with Breaking Bad. They were allowed one F-bomb a season. And if you go back, there's literally, and it's very strategically put, and it even like adds into the suspense of the show when they drop it. But the funny part is like and I've almost come close to swearing on this podcast. I almost said one on the hockey show with Judd yesterday, and Kirk has almost made me swear a few times on this show. But the funny part is like when I go on other podcasts, and people have said this to me before too, they've noticed that like, why don't you swear? Like I can tell you're about to. And it's like, well, now I'm so trained and conditioned not to swear on a podcast or when I have a hot mic on that it doesn't really come out. And it's kind of funny that now my brain's kind of brainwashed into that mode.
You're also like, you're sitting in a radio studio, and if someone like hit a wrong button or something and you broadcast an F-bomb, then you get fired by management. And I don't know. But do you guys want to hear us swear, I guess? Maybe that's the next topic for next Feedback Friday. Do you want to hear us swear more? A little casual F-bombs.
I'd love to unleash if we can. Oh, do you know who would be great? Turn Patrick loose.
Oh, God.
Oh my God. Well, there's been a couple times where. So, Pat, here's a story.
Hit it.
It's a little inside baseball here. We've all worked with Royce. So I did a 4 years. Him and I did a 3-hour radio show together, and we would sit across the desk from each other. We each had our little on-off microphone buttons, and we took 12 commercial breaks in a 3-hour show. And this is not exaggeration. Minimum 5 or 6 times every single show, 5 days a week for 4 years, he would be done with a segment and then forget to turn his microphone off. And so he would like lean back, and then he would start to talk off mic, and you'd have to like dive over the counter and hit the off button on his microphone. And there's a clip that we have saved still in the archives where forgot to turn his microphone off. And I'm not going to say what he said, but he went on a rant about something for like 3 seconds quickly with at least 1 or 2 words that you definitely can't say on the radio. He thought his mic was off. And it made it over the air during a 1500 ESPN sports update.
He was watching, I believe, an LPGA event.
Yes.
And someone smacked the ball into the water. So you can probably figure out what he said afterwards. But it is one of the best things I have ever heard. It really is.
I'm just saying turning Patrick loose would be, let's just say it'd be fun.
Yes.
And as a radio producer, because everyone has a dump button, like mine's there, you guys had like a literal nuke red button that says dump over it. The best part of that clip is hearing the dump button being clicked about 600 times.
Hammering it. No, you only have to hit it
Yeah,
once.
and you only have to hit it once, but it
when
was
someone says what he said, you feel like you have to hit it 100 times. Oh my gosh. All right, Feedback Friday here.